Boys, we're back at it again. It's the State of Football, Part 64 edition here on a Thursday, October 29th. I am your host, RIC, in a place to be, reporting live from New Jersey here on the island. You know, it's been raining for about 3-4 days straight, but our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to my co-host, John Murphy, down in the Gulf Coast region, who cannot join us today. And it's actually the anniversary of Hurricane Sandy here in New Jersey. I was just looking through some pictures online, all the damage that's been done and how we rebuilt and covered it. And it came to thinking like, hey, these people are going through a lot of adversity. People are going to wake up without their homes, no rooftops, whatever it may be. But you know what? As a country, we're going to come together. We're going to unite. We're going to build it back. We're going to be strong because adversity is going to bring out the best in us. So shout out to all the Gulf Coast region. We got a surprise. David Turner hits me up from the West Coast Phoenix of Arizona and says, hey, I'm awake. let me get in on the action. So we have Mr. Dr. David Turner, of course, longtime scout, NFL experience, CFL executive, three-peat champion at the Arena League, and of course, Dane Vandernat, the executive director at the NFLPA Collegiate. But I'll tell you what, here on the NFLDraftBible.com, between our seminars and the guests we bring on each day, I believe we're the finest NFL draft educational platform there is. And, you know, I've learned a lot working with these two guys over the past year, no doubt about that. So we're going to bring them into your living room. And, you know, we didn't coordinate this. Dane was scheduled to come on. The East-West Shrine game happens to get canceled the other day. And so I said at about 10 o'clock last night, I had to walk away from the phone because, Dane, I'm sure you've been getting lit up like a Christmas tree as well. And then I wake up this morning, there's 24 texts, most of them about, hey, what about the NFLPA Bowl? What about the NFLPA Bowl? Well, we'll share with you what we can. But first, let's start off with the East-West Shrine game cancellation. Obviously, nobody wants to see opportunity taken away from players. It's just such a critical aspect of the draft process, so much value to just the simple fact of getting measurables and doing interviews. And, you know, I tell people all the time, you're not really investing in the player, but you're investing in the person. And so, you know, when you take away this platform and the opportunity for all 32 to interview 120 guys, give or take, this is really going to create an unprecedented draft season. Last season was unprecedented, but this is truly unprecedented because we only had the Pro Day circuit canceled last year. Now we're starting to see an major all-star game canceled, and the combine, I believe, is going to look entirely different. So with that being said, we'll take it one layer at a time on the onion. But Dane, the news came down, East-West Shrine game gets canceled. And again, I mean, like the NFL teams now have to navigate this process starting in January, minus player interviews, minus a lot of measurements. And we saw what that meant last draft cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, first of all, pleasure to be back on here with you guys. Been missing you. And Ricky, always good to see that little face, man. And DT, the guy that always gave me a little mentorship in Oakland. So always appreciate this opportunity to jump on with you guys. And Rick, I think I'm going to pencil you in on my ballot for November after that patriotic start to the show here, man. I'm tired of seeing the commercials on TV, so I appreciate the optimism that we had at the onset. But
somebody's got to do
it. No, you know, it's certainly been obviously an anomaly of a year, a tragedy of a year, and you know, we all know we've been talking about it since the onset. You alluded to many of the things right off the get-go here, but the lack of information NFL teams have as they go through and start to build their draft board. A lot of teams meet in December and run an initial course of, hey, here's an overview of what the draft class looks like. Here are the positions that are going to be very deep. Here's kind of an initial ranking. And then they'll meet again after the All-Star games. Well, when a game like the East-West Shrine, you know, the exits out stage left, it makes it difficult still for those 115, 120 or so players that aren't going to have that opportunity to be seen physically by the NFL scouts, so they can see their body types. They can get official measurements on their arm length, on their hand size, their wingspan, their height, their weight, obviously. And then almost just as, if not more importantly, the opportunity to talk to a lot of these guys for the first time, to hear their voice, to be able to ask them questions. They've gone into the schools. They've done Zoom sessions with the support staff. There's some background issues that need to be cleaned up. There's some questions. Guys, of course, coaches always want to find out, do you love football? Are you passionate about the game? What are your work habits like? What do you do to get prepared for a game on Saturday? So for a lot of the scouts, the All-Star games are the first opportunity to get that information from the player firsthand, to hear their side of the story, to get exactly from the well what they're looking for. So, it's unfortunate with the East-West, with the news out of there. And, hopefully it is just an anomaly of a year, and next year they're right back in it and giving these great young men an opportunity.
Yeah, and sitting down, talking to these young men, you want to know about their background. You want to know about their status, if there's any medical injuries. Hey, Kylan Hill, for example, he leaves the program. You hear conflicting things, what's going on. You want to be able to pick his brain. And David Turner, I know you're big on this, as am I. All the little details, the minor things, as shaking somebody's hand, looking them in their eye. Is it a firm grip? Is it the dead fish shake? Does he look down? Does he have confidence? That could go a long way, as funny as it sounds. But all those little aspects now taking out of the evaluation process. You yourself obviously have been to a slew of all-star games. We take this East-West Shrine Bowl out of the equation. What does it do from an evaluation perspective?
Well, like you said, the numbers of of people who are probably going to be evaluated has dropped dramatically, right? Like over the course of this, when I came in so many years ago, I mean, we used to have like 5 or 6 all-star games. Like really, they were just all-star game after all-star game. So you went to all these, and you had a ability to shake everybody's hand, interview a bunch of kids, do a bunch of road work and catch-up work that you didn't get to do while you were on the road. But now, I mean, there really was East-West Shrine and Senior Bowl. I mean, the Texas Nation game's gone away. The Hula Bowl just came back last year for a minute. So you had 2 games. So now you're dramatically cutting down the number of evaluation opportunities. And like you guys alluded to as well, the combine is going to be different. They're not going to be sending every scout, every coach to the combine. They're probably just going to be sending medical personnel, essential personnel to go. It's not going to be every man on deck. It's going to be a lot of virtual interviews like they did last year. I know I talked to a couple executives at some teams. They're not even bringing their scouts in December, like Dane was talking about for that meeting. It's going to be virtual. Anything else is going to be virtual at this time. The scouts are staying away, and you don't have that interaction, that in-person necessary element of this process, and therefore there will be more misses. And last year, like you said, Rick, only thing that got interrupted were a few pro days, which was terrible for the kids. It was awful for the kids that didn't get their pro days. But at the end of the day, it didn't really interrupt the draft cycle too much. The younger or the smaller school kids only got 6 FCS schools kids drafted last year. Without the rookie mini camps, a lot of kids were on the street at ANC. Over the summer, we had a ton of kids that didn't have pro days, came to get verified measurables, verified times and everything, because they couldn't have an opportunity to do it in front of NFL scouts then. So we took care of them at ANC this summer. But it's going to really drastically this year impact the whole draft cycle without having an all-star game. Because again, you have a younger kid who maybe plays FCS. He comes in, tears it up at a Senior Bowl invite, or tears it up at an NFLPA or something invite, right? And then boom, they look better, and you can go forward with it. But now, there was 3 games, NFLPA, Senior Bowl, and East-West Shrine. Now there's down to 2. So, and if those don't happen because of things down the line, there could be none. It's really, this COVID thing is really affecting not only the college seniors, but high school seniors. The ripple effects are amazing with this right now.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned the FCS. I think the other ripple effect is, hey, you start taking these games away from those FCS prospects. Now they've got to consider going back and playing another season. And with the whole FCS spring season, if you're playing ball in January, February, you wouldn't even be able to attend an all-star game anyway, because you missed the deadline to declare. And so that's going to be an interesting development and ripple effect in terms of what the FCS prospects do. So, you mentioned the point. What will happen to the other NFL draft all-star games? Well, you got two guys here involved with one of them. The Senior Bowl, I see, continues to make announcements and plow through. I still think at the end of the day that in the COVID-19 world pandemic, that life that we're living, nobody can be definitive in any answer, period, one way or the other, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know the life cycle of this thing. If another second wave occurs, it's just too unpredictable. But, hey, who better than to have on than the executive director of the NFLPA Bowl to share what he can, because I know a lot of agents tune in and watch this show. So, Dane, listen, I'll preface it by this. There's few people, if any, on this panel that are willing to do more for the players. And I'll start off by saying that. But in terms of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, what is the latest update that we can share with the listening audience?
Sure. Well, you made a good point, both you guys did, as far as, the precarious nature that we're all still in. And as you're saying and alluding, it's, one of those things where every single day you're continuing to evaluate, to monitor the situations. And, obviously with cold and flu season coming up and, potentially, uptick in COVID rates and everything, it's something that the Players Association is monitoring. It's something that obviously, as the union for all NFL players, the health and safety of players is paramount and the first, priority that our organization has when putting on a game. So we're still in an evaluation standpoint. We will not leave the players high and dry. We will do something for them, and we'll continue to kind of evaluate as things go. But with all-star games, it's just like the bowl games, right? You saw last week, Holiday Bowl bow out. You're going to have a major shift in the entire offseason process that a lot of draft eligible or draft prospects begin to go through, right? You're talking about with the FCS playing a spring. What about the D2 kids? Rick, you and I both know we had a number of D2 kids that are on our radar as, hey, these guys can be drafted. They're quality players. They may play at a small school for a litany of reasons, but they have the talent and they have the ability to potentially play on Sundays in the NFL. So there's still a lot of hang-ups and question marks that are going to continue to go on, as you also mentioned with the Combine and Pro Days. Are we going to have Pro Days again this year? Will there be Rising Senior Days? Thank God that ANC and Dave Turner and you guys, got out there and were able to provide some of that value for these young men, right? Because we all sat there and said the 350 or so guys that played in the Big Three All-Star games last year, that may have been their only opportunity to get official measurements. So, it's going to be something that's going to continue to be precarious, unfortunately. And I just, pray that obviously we kind of come out of this COVID thing by next spring at the latest. And we're able to have some of the traditional build up to not only the draft, but to the offseason program, like Dave mentioned with rookie minicamps. Huge opportunity for undrafted players and street free agents to go to 32 NFL clubs as a tryout and earn their way onto the roster. In fact, prominent players like Jalen Richard for the Raiders was a guy that we invited to rookie minicamp. We drafted DeAndre Washington in the 5th round that year. And we ended up clearing a spot for Jalen just because, we felt it was a talent that we couldn't pass up. So definitely something that, players need these opportunities. They need to be able to go there, get measured again, whatever it may be. But just to have, the opportunity to do something fresh, to do something live, to do something recent is huge for NFL teams.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word opportunity. If the NFL is watching or listening right now, I urge you, please add a secondary combine. Please, let's not have 32 teams travel the country to 100 different schools to go and test and time and see players. Bring them all into one facility. Do it. Do it now. Get the next 200, the next best 250. David Turner, I see you want to chime in.
Well, I have a proposal on the desk with ANC up at the NFL offices where we would hold 8 combines. The 9th one would be an HBCU combine, but 8 combines around the country, like a mini Indianapolis, where we can bring the kids in, do formal interviews, run them 40s, measure them, and then get a few of the team doctors. Our proposal is get just a couple to come in and do medicals on these kids around the country, and then whatever images or something they need, would be suggested to go back to the school, take the images, go back home, and then send them into a portal where then all the team doctors can look at them and make an assessment if there needs to be further updates or further processes. So this way we don't have that bottleneck of, well, we only have verified measurables who came to Indianapolis. We only have verified speeds and everything that came to Indianapolis. We have a proposal right now on the NFL's desk trying to get these 8 to 9 combines where we would go around the country so no player is left behind. And we make sure that every player, no matter what level of school they are, get an opportunity to come and do this. And again, we're looking at doing it in April, like the March and April. So those 5 weeks. So hopefully the FCS will be done or around there so their players can be invited and be there, get those verified measurables, those verified speeds, and a medical report on them. So we're hoping the NFL moves it forward and they accept our proposal and get us moving forward on that.
No, that would be fantastic. And, just a side note to your proposal there, I mean, the FCS guys won't be eligible if they play in the spring because they'll miss every player is technically an underclassman, right? So until they declare, they're an underclassman. This is my understanding. So, they're going to miss that January 15th deadline to declare. If they play in the spring, they're automatically in the next draft cycle. Now, if they opt out of the spring season, then they would be eligible. So just something to think about, but it's a fantastic proposal and a huge need because, as Dane alluded to, we didn't even have a lot of the spring days and junior days where we got the measurables, right? And so you take the all-star games away, they're less measurables. Only so many get invited to the NFL Combine. Those guys get measurables. But Dane, you've been on the road now to a handful of games, and it's not the same rodeo, right? The road life as a scout attending these things, you're not getting quite the observation that we're used to here, right?
No, in fact, well, I mean, I've had a couple different experiences from a couple different schools, but, some of them is you're just relegated to the press box where you're obviously hundreds of feet up in the air, away from the field. You're looking in your binoculars to try and get body types on guys rather than traditionally being down on the field pre-game, looking at them up close and personal, really just trying to find the little intricacies that make them who they are. And, also your opportunity to kind of chat with some coaches and support staff and get some different perspective or a little bit of background on guys that maybe you wouldn't otherwise. So, have been to some places where they've allowed me on the field. Some places I had to go buy a ticket and go sit in the stands. Other places, like I said, relegated to, press box only. So the experience is quite different. And then obviously, as you guys have talked about in previous episodes, most schools are closed and aren't holding practices that are open for NFL scouts to come and attend. And obviously, Dave knows a ton about the importance of the school call visits themselves. In fact, I've been on a few Zoom calls where you're one of 70 scouts that are on this thing with, support staff members, and you just lack the personalization that you normally would have. You lack the ability to really ask specific questions about players that maybe something a little bit about, or you need something cleared up, but you don't want to, say anything in front of everybody. And obviously, most scouts have personal relationships with certain coaches or support staff members in the schools. I think the biggest benefit of having area scouts that are year in, year out in the same place is you develop those relationships. And those relationships are where you're really able to read between the lines or to be able to get the real information on the young men, right? And it's not always bad information. Some of the times it's just, hey, look, this is the best way that the NFL team can support this young man. Or, hey, these are some of the things that we as a program have done to provide support and help him, be the best that he can. And it's what an NFL team ought to consider as well. So just having that information a lot of times can answer questions that general managers and coaches are going to have throughout the draft process. And right now, with scouts not being able to get some of those personal touches, it makes it all the more difficult.
And no doubt about it. I mean, we've stated it here numerous occasions. The veteran scouts really, they should be at a premium, and teams should be willing to pay their scouting staff what they're worth, because you're going to get what you pay for. A young green scout that might not have the relationships is not going to come back with the same information. The pro liaisons might not get back to them. And, you know, when you go into a school year in and year out and you see the same faces and you know the same coaches, you get a feel for which guys blow smoke, which guys shoot you straight, which guys, you know, are willing to talk off the record. And when you do a Zoom call with 70 other people, all that stuff goes out the window. And not only that, I think the personal skill set of being able to talk to a young man that might be half your age, loosen him up, get him comfortable being uncomfortable, and, you know, knowing how to ask the questions to get the information you want to receive, right? Such a skill. As I know, Dane, you're as good as it gets, brother. David Turner is the godfather over here. I've seen him in action. So, you know, just some insight and perspective into the scouting process here with Dane Vandernat, David Turner, and, of course, Ric Serritella. We got a few minutes left with Dane. We'll get you out of here, my man. But since you are hitting the scouting trails, give us a couple guys here that have caught your attention and caught the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl attention.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm going to start with some receivers here for you guys, and some names that aren't going to be unfamiliar to many players based on how they're playing this year and how, you know, really they have for the last couple of years. But I'll tell you right now, I went back and I was watching the California corners over the summertime, trying to evaluate them going into the year. North Texas receiver returner Jalen Darden jumped off the tape in that game. And Rico Bussey was a big-time receiver for North Texas last year. He got injured, and Jalen Darden kind of took the spot as the number one receiver for them. Went on and had a great season last year with 736 yards and 12 touchdowns. Already this year, with game canceled and this upcoming week canceled, he's already at 689 yards and 10 touchdowns receiving. And this kid's a punt returner. He's returned a punt for a touchdown as a freshman. He's been a kick returner. He can line up in the slot. He's lightning fast and quick. I'll tell you what, I got a lot of interest in Jalen Darden. I think he's a guy that went from a free agent or maybe seventh rounder, and he may be elevating his stock all the much further here for the rest of the season. But staying at the position, Jonathan Adams over at Arkansas State. Rick, we had the two receivers, Omar Bayless and Kirk Merritt from Arkansas State last year. This young man's going to be the next great Arkansas State receiver. Big 6'4", 220 frame kid, knows how to work his body to body up DBs and make contested catches. Really intrigued by Jonathan Adams, having a great year with 7 touchdowns already on the season. And Marlon Williams, guy that played slot for UCF last year, getting a larger role this year for him, leads the NCAA with 753 yards this year. Dude's got at least 9 receptions in every single game, and he's got 13 receptions, I think, in 2 or 3 games so far this year. So he's already bested in his production from a season ago, really having an outstanding year, and I think doing himself a lot of good. You know, go on, Rick, sorry.
No, I mean, the wide receiver class this year is remarkable. And Marlon Williams is kind of like a stocky, you know, yards after catch type of guy. Him and Trey Nixon there at UCF kind of came in with a similar draft grade. But I think Marlon Williams now is kind of pushing towards that top 100 status. And that little quarterback they got there, Dylan Gabriel, I call him the micro fridge. He just – I mean, they are a high potent, high octane offense for sure.
You know what's fun, and you always love this, right? Because you see so much in the proliferation of the spread and all the dink and dunk, all the wide receiver screens. We're going to run a horizontal offense. UCF takes more vertical shots than I think any team in the NCAA. It seems as though they always have a go route, a fade, whatever you want to call it, on every single play by one of their wide receivers. And your man, the quarterback there, Gabriel, he is not shy about letting that thing go regardless of down and distance. So they're super fun to watch. But, Rick, I got to give you a shout out because last year at Kansas, you identified Khalil Herbert, the running back. I thought he was, a little more pedestrian. I wasn't as high on him as you were, but obviously you can't talk about surprises so far in the season without mentioning Herbert, who's out there torching the ACC. So magnificent season that he's having. And, for on the defensive side, Patrick Jones at Pitt. Last year, I wasn't as high on. I came into this season and I was like, I see flashes. I think he's draftable. He certainly has an edge presence, but I didn't always love his finish. I didn't always love his physicality, his effort in the run game. I'll tell you what, he has elevated his game this season, leads the NCAA in sacks right now with 7. He's on a tear right now. He's making me want to go and watch every single Pitt game that I can get my hands on to try and find exactly what has he done to bridge that gap from a season ago. He's really been intriguing me so far, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to watch his development this year. He and Rashad Weaver on the other side. I think Rashad has a high ceiling. I'm a big Rashad Weaver fan. Amazingly, Pitt has 3 guys in the top 10 in NCAA in sacks, including Patrick Jones and Rashad Weaver. So, they're having quite the year right now getting after quarterbacks despite some of their struggles on the other side.
Well, one thing Pat Narduzzi knows how to do is play some defense up there in Pittsburgh. So, DeMar Hamlin's another guy. I think he came back for a 6th year of eligibility, and he's had some medical in the past, but I thought he was, as talented as any Pitt player in that secondary. And then Paris Ford is a guy to keep an eye on for the future. Maybe he declares, I'm not sure, but the Jones, who you mentioned, I think is a dark horse now for that round 1 category. And I will say this, Arkansas State, man, there's something in the water over there. They just keep turning out these wide receivers every year all of a sudden with the Red Wolves. And Darden, I mean, if you don't know about this young man, he's got a great background story. But he's almost in that Deshaun Jackson body frame. I think he's like 5'9" and change, 176 soaking wet. But the dude just makes plays. He's explosive. As Dane mentioned, the return ability is the X factor there. That's going to be a guy who's intriguing. Might not be for everybody, but if you're a contending team looking for, a weapon to put you over the edge or something like that, I think he could add a lot of value there in that day 3 mix. Well, hey, we got a lot in here in this first half hour of the show. Dane, I appreciate you hopping on. We kept you overtime here, minus John. So I'm sure we will have you back on in the very near future, and I'm sure we'll be chatting really soon.
No doubt. I appreciate you guys having me on here, man. Always great to see those mugs of yours.
Yes, sir. Keeping it chopping, keeping it moving. And I know you were supposed to be at Wisconsin, Nebraska this week, and that game got canceled. So you can soak in another Big Ten game and watch those Rutgers boys upset the ranked Hoosiers now.
Who's for real in the Big Ten? Is it Indiana or is it Rutgers? I know, Rick, you're biased on that one.
All right, Dane, we appreciate the time. David, I'll pick it up with you on my Rutgers guys. I mean, I was I think talking to you yesterday, like they had 8 turnovers in that game. I went back last year. They didn't even score 8 points in 7 of the games that they played. It's like, Shiano just turned this roster upside down. And listen, it's not strictly coaching there. I mean, the guy came in with a not a recruiting list, but a transfer portal list. He said, these are my top 100 guys. I'm going after them. I don't want anybody from Chris roster on my team. And he brings in 14 players from the P5. So, I mean, there's suddenly something to work with here.
Well, you know what is interesting and what's awesome for guys like me and you is like these colleges are starting to have a pro personnel department, which is that P5 transfer list style thing. And then they have the recruiting office that goes in and they have to mine like a college draft board, the young kids in high school to get those commits. So, you're almost seeing a dual department like you've seen in the NFL for so many years, a pro personnel department and that. And Schiano, with his time in the NFL and around NFL teams, really took advantage of that. He understands his concept and mindset really well. So therefore, he walks in the door, like you said, with a list of top 100 or whatever 150 players, goes and lands 14 of them, churns that roster really quick, fast, and he saw the immediate impact. Unlike the NFL, where you got to pay all these guys, in that pro system, those free agents get the big money. In college, they don't with the transfer rules. It's not like you're upping and doing more or whatever. So I thought it was genius what he did, walking in, saying, I want to go get, veteran guys that have been in college, that are thirsty, that are hungry, that need an opportunity, put them all together, let it froth, and then boom, here we go. We're a contender. They're not a pretender, right? They're a contender. So
I don't know if they're a contender just yet. We'll see. But hey, listen, I didn't even expect to turn around like that. I mean, I thought they would beat Michigan State. I didn't think they would dominate them like that. And, I don't look now. I mean, Shannon took a look at that roster and said, man, I'm in trouble. But don't look right now. He's got a top 20 recruiting class in the nation. So more help is on the way. But I'm not kidding. Give it 3-4 years, they are going to be consistently ranked. And they have a ranked opponent, number 17, Indiana, this Saturday, that we'll get more into tomorrow on our Football Friday show, but really dive deep into it on the NFL Draft Tailgate show this Saturday. And, of course, if you want more Rutgers news, we had and I see him just diving into the chat room, Ryan Roberts, your compadre there, David Turner. You guys do so many beautiful
Mijo, you're up early.
He just did the season premiere of Rise and Draft Mailbag. One of the players highlighted is Tyshawn Fogg, who, and a few people are higher on Rutgers players than me. Ryan's saying, hey, Fogg, potential day 2 top 100 type prospect. Hey, I wouldn't doubt it. This guy's a 2-time team captain. You talk about, Sean Bradley out of Temple last year was a guy. I said, hey, give me that guy. He could play for me any day. Tyshawn Fogg kind of fits that mold. Now, if you're not familiar with what's going on the NFLDraftBible.com, we're back at it again. We're back into the daily content business. We've got the website relaunch coming. We've got all kinds of great content that's going to be booming you and bopping you and banging you over the head. And nobody does it better than the NFL Draft Bible, right? And like my daughter Oshana says, bippity boppity boop, bam! You log on, there's a new article. Bam! You log on, there's a Mav Sports Take podcast. Bam! You log on, they're scouting the nation from our scouting department with all the risers, sliders, and surprises. Bam! There's the SEC report. Bam! There's the Pac-12 preview. Bam! We've got hundreds of scouting reports being loaded as we speak, and all kinds of historical data and information that you just don't know about until we hit you with it. So go all access, log on, NFLDraftBible.com. You get a free copy of our book, Scout Speak, written by Neil Stratton, who, oh, by the way, we'll have here in just a few minutes. So make sure you check out Inside the League, Succeed in Football. And we are, for a limited time, you saw the stack that keeps getting smaller and smaller. For a limited time only, when you go all access, we'll give you a free copy of the book. And also, the online scouting seminars that I alluded to earlier. Last night, we had another great one in the books with Ryan Roberts and Brian Baldinger. They did the defensive line breakdown seminar with J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald. They broke down Julius Peppers. They went back into the archives. And then,
I bet that was fun.
Oh, we got Turner excited there with that one.
Well, Pep and I, we used to date.
Yeah, and then it's Friday, David Turner. I missed our call there on Tuesday this week. Give us a sneak peek preview of the Friday Night Scout School for tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night we're doing tackles. We're going to start to dive into why these guys get paid so much money. We hear about the blind side, we hear about the left tackle so much, but we're going to digest both tackle spots. We picked out some great ones, and we're going to be able to dive in and see why they're paid so much money, what the difference is between a left tackle and a right tackle. body style wise, measurement wise, but also just playing wise and what they're asked to do often, play in and play out. So we're really excited. Ryan did a great job picking up some great players, and the plays and everything. We cleared up and got it all settled last night. So it'll be a great educational session, and it's a key session because you have to understand what tackles do to understand how offenses are successful and why they struggle.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, if you're an aspiring scout, you want to just sharpen your scouting eye, you want to understand schemes and concepts, or you're a player, you want to understand what scouts are looking for when they evaluate you, or you're an agent and you want to understand how a player fits into a scheme or concept. David Turner and Ryan Roberts are doing it better than anybody else out there. Take that to the bank. You could take this to the bank. Anytime Neil Stratton comes on, he's going to add value to our show. We're happy to have him here each and every Thursday on the State of Football, 9:40 a.m. Eastern every Thursday at Inside the League. We just got done touting the book, Scout Speak, that you see there behind me. Of course, Neil, the author, his second book, Moving the Chains. If you want to go kind of behind the scenes, the draft process, I advise any new agent, any parent, any player about to enter this draft process, that book is going to be worth its weight in salt. And so we have Neil Stratton here. Make sure you go check out succeedinfootball.com for his insight and analysis. And Neil, welcome into the rodeo show. We've got David Turner today, minus John Murphy, who's dealing with the hurricane, and you're not too far west of that. So hopefully you're in dry land down there in Houston.
I'll tell you, it's been pretty relentless for the New Orleans area over the last few months. We've been fortunate here in Houston. We've gotten a little bit of rain, maybe a little bit of wind, but for the most part, nothing. They hadn't laid a glove on us. I feel terrible for the people in the Delta who are my homies. I'm from South Louisiana myself, so we're lifting prayers for those guys for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We are thinking about them heavily. We alluded to that in the show open. We also alluded to the cancellation of the East-West Shrine game. We had Dane Vandernat on to discuss the impact and analysis. We also spoke about what it means for the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, which we'll also get into. But let's start off with that East-West Shrine Bowl. Neil, they had, I think 85 guys or 90 guys on NFL rosters from last year's event. So this is obviously a big part of the evaluation process. We've been discussing the lack of measurables. There was no junior days. Now scouts are not allowed to go in and talk to the players, really. Talk to some coaches, but not really getting their hands on players. And when you take away the interview process, when you take away the measurables, this is going to leave a huge void for this upcoming draft cycle, more so than last year where we only saw pro days being canceled. Now we have our first major all-star event canceled.
I spent yesterday afternoon kind of texting with a lot of scouting friends, and it's interesting because it seems like the attitude right now, Rick, is almost that they just want to get a good combine in. If they can get a good combine in with their top 300-odd players, 350, whatever, and they can kind of look at those guys, then they feel like they've got a fighting chance. It's almost as if, to some degree, teams have kind of waved the white flag on the all-star season, and that really is disturbing to me because I know how much it means to the business. I know how much it means to people like you and me who work for all-star games. And but more than anything else, there's just a lot of players who are going to lose opportunities because they didn't go to the Power 5 school, or they didn't play the marquee position, or they didn't get the recognition maybe that players would normally get in a regular season, one that wasn't affected by the virus. So it's just a really lamentable situation for everyone involved, and especially for people like the three of us and everyone who's on this call who kind of care about the game behind the game.
Well, and also I remember when I was at Texas versus the Nation game, I saw TJ Lang down there for the first time. I mean, I brought him back. He played 4 of the 5 positions at the Texas Nation game. Wasn't East-West Shrine, NFLPA, or Senior Bowl. But by making an impression there, he got an invite to the East-West Shrine game to go up against bigger competition and then show he can do it. And, what is he, a 15-year vet right now or something? I mean, he's a guy that's been in the league forever. I brought him back to the O-line coach at the time, and I said, hey, take a look at this guy. And he was just like, well, he's such a young school. He was only at Texas Nation game. Mm-hmm. But But then when he went to the East-West Shrine, he did look at him because now he became an East-West Shrine invite. He became a legit guy. They use that as a benchmark, right? And without that game, we don't, like Rick alluded to earlier in the show, with COVID and everything, we don't know where we're going to be. So we don't know what's going to happen with Senior Bowl, even though they keep tweeting out that things are going to be good. We don't know what it's going to look like. And even the combine, we don't know. Neil, you can imagine they're not going to send every scout to the combine. It's going to be like a virtual combine, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing about, for most fans, they're thinking, what's the big deal? I mean, Trevor Lawrence is going to be fine, right? But the people that, have to populate special teams, and people have to have your backup offensive linemen and all those kinds of things, those guys matter. And, when your favorite player goes down in week 7 and you don't have a ready backup, then you're in big trouble. And what is it? 30 or 40% of the league at any time is undrafted free agents. I mean, this is a league. NFL scouting is not like maybe baseball scouting or basketball scouting. It is heavily dependent upon eyes, and it's not easily done by metrics. And so it's very important to evaluate those players when they can go and put pads on and work out against guys that are kind of in their station as a player. Body type is important too. I mean, we've all been to weigh-ins, hundreds of weigh-ins, and scouts get to see these guys parade around in their underwear. It sounds like a kind of a silly thing, but it matters a lot to scouts to be able to see if a guy's really developed, if he's been working his 4 years in college, or if he's just kind of a big, kind of lumpy guy who's been able to get by because of the lack of competition that he's faced. So many things go into these all-star games, and if you've been to one, and I'm sure most people that are on this call have, you realize what an important part of this process it is. So, again, will football go on? Of course. Will there be a combine? Hopefully. And will the best players be there? Yes. But there are still a lot of aspects of this game that will be felt, especially to the evaluators, to the agents, and especially to the players that wouldn't get opportunities otherwise. And that's the really disappointing part of all this.
Yeah, I mean, just go back and look at last year's draft. I would be curious to know how many players were actually drafted that didn't get verified measurables, aka weren't at an all-star game, weren't at a combine, that actually got drafted. I would imagine that number was an all-time low. We had an all-time low FCS. I mean, the year before was an all-time low at 18, and it went from 18 down to 6. I mean, that's drastic. Right. And the other good point that Justin Van Fulpen made this week, we posted it on the NFLDraftBible.com, how COVID is impacting the draft process, Neil. So the NCAA has now granted an extra year of eligibility to every single player. So my understanding is that technically everybody has to declare for the draft. They're all considered underclassmen.
Absolutely.
That underclassmen deadline doesn't occur until mid-January.
Right.
So, if you're an FCS guy that wants to play your spring season, you've now got to make a clear-cut decision. Do I want to go pro, or do I want to play the spring season and enter next year's draft? And when you take away all-star games, there are less avenues for small school guys to get seen and measured and verified. I have a strong feeling that a lot of FCS guys are going to opt back to play and return. The Trey Lances of the world, they're going to be an exception to the rule. But what do you make of this, kind of underclassmen rule where technically scouts can't even speak to players until they officially declare? So even if there was an all-star game, say pre-January 15th, scouts technically wouldn't even be allowed to be there.
Well, typically during a typical year, January 18th is around, I think, is the date this year. And it's usually right after the midpoint of January. NFL teams can't evaluate any players until after, any underclassmen until after that date. Now that all players technically are underclassmen, there can't be any all-star games held before then. So typically the College Gridiron Showcase, the game that I'm a part of, is before then. The Tropical Bowl, which I always attend in Daytona Beach, is before then. Typically, the Shrine game is 3 days in at that point. Typically, your game is 3 days in at that point. I mean, I don't know if your guys report on Saturday or Sunday, but it's a seismic shift to the All-Star process, this move to essentially make everyone juniors. And I don't know if there's going to be some kind of a way that the NCAA is going to try to go in and reconcile that or change things a little bit, but as things stand, it is a major, major shift, and we probably are going to see All-Star games move. Well, we have to see All-Star games moving later, at least the ones that are still standing. But right now it seems like again that they're falling by the minute, and again, it's just a really disappointing development for people who are in the game, especially these players.
Well, talking with Nagy at the Senior Bowl, he had said if the combine's not going to move their combine date, it would be very hard for him to move his date because agents don't want the players to come play down there or participate in anything down there and then have to go like right into, go up to the combine. They want to go play and then get some combine training.
They're the last week of January, so they're kind of after that. That's the one game that is in the clear.
Well, that's in the clear, but I'm just saying, like, if the other games start pushing back or doing different things, how would that affect Senior Bowl? And will it affect Senior Bowl, stuff like that? But like you guys said that this ripple,
right? They're talking about a 2-week event.
Yeah.
So now, if you do move an All-Star game later, you might be competing with the Senior Bowl, right?
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point. Yeah, to me, the Senior Bowl is kind of the nucleus of the All-Star landscape this year, and everyone else kind of plays off of them. I don't know, if they go to the 2-week thing, that is going to really change things. But again, if the players that typically aren't in the Senior Bowl are, I don't want to say lesser, but they're not of the same stature as Senior Bowl players. So they're going to have to kind of fit in after the Senior Bowl. I don't know if the Senior Bowl is planning on expanding its rosters. I don't know what the answer is. And Rick, maybe you have insight on that I don't have, or maybe you do, David. I don't know. Right now, I think it's reasonable to wonder if we're going to have pro days this year. And that could be a major, major setback for players as well. It looks like right now, all things being equal, if you don't go to the combine, you may not get a workout. And that is just, again, devastating to a lot of players that otherwise would have real chances to live out their dreams of playing the NFL.
And another point, as we're kind of brainstorming this out loud here on the fly on the state of football, David Turner, Neil Stratton, technically Senior Bowl doesn't have to abide by the NFLPA protocol, which is 5 days of self-quarantine, pass X amount of tests before you can even conduct the weigh-in. That's how it would be for the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. And Neil, I know you missed our earlier portion with Dane Vandernat. We haven't made a definitive decision. We're not going to leave the players high and dry. We know that much. So we will have some kind of an event in a shape or form of something. We just don't know yet. Obviously, a decision has to be made soon. We're 3 months away. But I'm wondering too, David, put your NFL Goopalini on as a front office exec. Like, if the Senior Bowl doesn't abide by those NFLPA protocols, like the players show up, we scan your head, take your temperature, same day test, go hang out in your room for a couple hours until, you come back negative, and we'll see you on the field tomorrow. I'm wondering how safe are the teams going to feel about sending scouts or GMs even attending an event if they don't do the protocol that's been enacted?
Well, I would feel that the NFLPA or the NFL would give their advisory not to attend, and because that puts their current employees in jeopardy of exposure to COVID in a way in which they're completely trying to protect themselves from. And it's just like, then you walk back in your building and you have to do these stringent COVID testing, and you walk out and you don't. So for me, I think it's a situation where if you have an all-star game like this and you're trying to send your guys out to do an all-star appearance or a scouting thing, that they wouldn't allow them to go if it wasn't a very strict process to, test these guys and ensure a safe bubble environment. And I think the 2-week thing shows that maybe the Senior Bowl is going to try to do a bubble environment during those 2 weeks and get these guys on the field with pads and in a safe environment for them. If it was just like a straight walk in, take your temperature, and we'll see you tomorrow, I don't think the NFL would allow their personnel guys to attend and in person. Now they can stream it, go live. They can do different things where they can get, cameras and do that. But as far as sending their employees to do it under the current CBA rules and agreements with the players associations, it does include like not having the staff be exposed to stuff like this. So, I don't think they would be allowed to go.
And David, if I could add to that, that's the message I got loud and clear when I was reaching out to scouts yesterday, is that they're not going to do anything until the NFL gives the go-ahead. And another point to make, as we've gone to more of the Patriots model in scouting, where the young guys go out and gather facts and the older guys make the decisions, you're talking about a lot of guys that are in that sensitive area, 60 plus, that typically would be at these all-star games. And maybe not the lesser tier ones, but certainly the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Game, which we know is canceled, the NFLPA Bowl. Those guys are going to be very wary, I think, of going out and being among people. Y'all have all been at these all-star games. It's like, masses of humanity. So, that's another, again, strike against all these kids that would love to have opportunities, but just may not get them this year. I can't wait to see how the combine tackles this, because everywhere you go, there are crowds, and it's almost impossible to keep people at 6 feet away in some of these areas. Maybe once they get to Lucas Oil Stadium, when they're watching workouts, that's a different situation. But even then, most people want to be lined up with that, the finish line of the 40, so they can get that, the most precise number. It's just fraught with possibilities, and most of them are good ones.
And I think the combine has to stagger the players in. Again, if they're going to abide by the NFLPA protocol, this adds significant time, money, coordination. I mean, you've now got to fly guys in, put them up in a hotel for 5 days. This is an extravagant cost. I don't care if you're an all-star game, the NFL combine, that's 350 guys that you're now paying an extra 5 nights of hotel rooms for.
Yeah.
Well, and think about the strain on the athlete's body. If they got to go sit in a hotel room for 5 days, right, not train, not really do much, and they got to sit around for 5 days, they can go probably have access to the field to do some running. They can do some stuff, but they're not with their trainer, and maybe not with their dietitian, and everything getting dialed in for these optimal performances that we're asking them to do. And then bam, they go out there and try to perform after 5 days of sitting in a hotel room.
Yeah.
How many injuries are we going to see? Are we going to see a bunch of hamstrings pop, maybe an Achilles or two? Because again, they're taking them out of the normal training routine, asking them to sit around and not do much. And therefore now we're going to wind up seeing some stuff happen. So,
and not to get too far into the weeds, but if you're looking at this from the agent standpoint, you send a kid to an all-star game, you typically are going to pay for about a 6 to 8 week training period. When you send a kid to an all-star game, you have to pay for that week anyway. Now you're going to pay for an extra week for a kid to sit on his butt for 5 days and go to an all-star game. Now he misses 2 weeks that you pay for. It's tricky. The economics get tricky. Everything gets tricky. I mean, there's just so many different things to think about.
As an investor, which is what agents are, your return on investment last year didn't look so good with that trainer, and the trainers are going to want to kill me. But hey, some of these guys dropped 40, 50 grand, and these guys were then shut out of a pro day. I wonder how many agents are going to be willing to pick up that tab this year. Obviously, the larger agencies can absorb that kind of loss, but I think the haves and the have-nots in this pandemic, that gap continues to go like this. And, nobody reports on that better than Neil Stratton at Inside the League. Of course, tomorrow is the Friday Wrap, where he does a great job of recapping the week that was, everything that goes on at Inside the League, Succeed in Football. Fantastic seminars, brother. You've got to communicate with me better about these seminars so I can help spread the word and share the love and get the word out there to the Twitterverse. But, tell us everything that's going on at Inside the League.
Well, let's talk about the Friday Wrap first. Tomorrow, we were planning on talking to several former NFL GMs to ask them, if you had a chance, which team do you pick, the Falcons or the Texans? Which one gives you a better chance to win immediately? And I was really excited about that. We got some pretty neat responses. But now with the Shrine Game dropping this week, it changed things. And so now we're going to have a bit more of a flavor of the all-star landscape as well. We'll be talking to Jose. We'll be talking to Michael with the Tropical Bowl. May talk to Dane. Just because so many people are this is what's on everyone's mind. And so we're going to touch on that as well and address that, even though it's just such an evolving landscape. I don't know if we can really come to any real conclusions yet, but at least we can maybe get a better picture of what you're looking at. Tonight we'll be on with Ahmad Russell, former Colts scout, and he'll talk about his experiences in the game. He'll talk about how he got his job, his origin story, and he'll talk about, here's a guy who spent 5 years, I believe, maybe 7 with the Eagles. He spent, I believe, 5 with the Colts. He got to see Howie Roseman in action, one of the top GMs out there. He got to see Chris Ballard in action, another one of the top GMs out there. What were their strengths? What were their weaknesses? How did they differ, and how did they, how were they similar? I can't wait to talk about that. And then, of course, we'll talk about the 2016 draft, which has kind of been our fun part of each hour, and just get his insights and his observations from a wild and wacky year. As we've discussed already, it was a Laramie Tunsil year. Say no more for everyone who's a draft fan, and so many other different angles to that draft that made it unique. And so it'll be a lot of fun. I encourage everyone who's out there who's interested in the game behind the game to register for the Friday Wrap. You can find the link on my Twitter. Even if you're interested in kind of hearing the really nuts and bolts of a former scout talk, and we still have room tonight just for $9. You can come in and be part of that, sit in the Zoom room with us and hear him talk about his experiences in the game. Really looking forward to it. That's at 8:00 Eastern time.
I know, that's a crazy Eddie bargain right there. Make sure you get on that, folks. I mean, what an opportunity, especially if you're into scouting, if you're into the business of football, if you're into the behind-the-scenes stuff. That's phenomenal. Will you have more of these, Niels? I know you had a couple scheduled. You had Doug Whaley last week, I believe.
That's correct. This is our 4th quarter series. We're going to start holding it in the last 3 months of every year, I believe. Our first week was Danson Bartow, who's with the Rams. David, you probably know Bart. He really delivered. I mean, he's such a great guy, and he's an old school football guy. And then you had Doug, who's kind of the other side of the coin, very polished, very measured, very insightful. Tonight's with Ahmad, obviously, and then next week we'll have Raleigh McKenzie, who was with the Raiders. Another great guy who's got all kinds of stories. He had a great NFL career as well. His brother was the GM of the Raiders. Again, everyone brings something a little different to it. And that's what makes it so fun. I mean, I tell people I get the most out of these things than anybody else. I mean, I get to hear these incredible stories, and I get to ask the questions. So, I'm the one who gets really scratches itch more than anybody else. And it's a lot of fun doing it.
It is a lot of fun. I got a chance to sit on a few of these things, and it's definitely worth the price of admission for $9. Jesus, go there now. InsideTheLeague.com. Sign up. Get that Friday Wrap. Hey, Neil. We always appreciate it every Thursday here on The State of Football, my man.
It was a blast, guys. Thanks so much. Y'all have a great weekend.
Absolutely. Bye, Neil. That's Neil Stratton, Inside the League, and doing some great things there with the seminars, the Scout Speak book. You can go to NFLDraftBible.com, become an all-access subscriber, get a free copy of that book, Scout Speak. I'll drop it in the mail today. You see the pile sliding down while supplies last. And speaking of seminars, I know Maverick Sports Consulting is doing a series of seminars as well, David.
Tonight we have our free seminar on, you sign up via our Twitter account at @Mav_sports, and we are diving into the social media, power of social media, whether it's branding your young player in high school, college, and beyond, and teaching players and how to set up their post-playing career by using social media through their playing career. So this way it'll be an easier transition, and they become more of an attractive hire once they are all done. So the power of social media will be tonight. We are bringing on a special guest, Grace DeWitt, who's an expert in this industry. And she owns Douglas Digital. So it'll be a situation where you'll get to hear 2 experts working on your behalf if you come and chime in. And it's really great because we've set up some pitfalls where we've seen athletes make some missteps and not understand the effects of what they are doing prior to doing them. So we want to show those pitfalls, but we also want to show you guys the power of how to do it right. And we have some examples of who did it right, and that's really helped their career so far and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, Grace does a phenomenal job. She's going to have excellent insight into this category for sure. And Mav Sports Take, which we post on the website now every Wednesday. You guys had the Spooky Yuki Halloween edition. We saw you out there with the costumes. But you guys have been doing a great job diving into various sections of the football and sports world industry. I know this week you guys chopped it up, talked a little CFL. You've done some high school recruiting. You could do game previews. Give the folks at home what they can expect to listen in when they dial into the Mav Sports Take podcast.
Mav Sports Take is not your mother's sports program, okay? It's really not. We're unmuzzled, and we go all the way in on this. We want to give you the unbridled truth of football as sports in general. We want to give you different angles. Like this week, we had Farhan Lalji on. He's a TSN reporter up in Canada. We were talking CFL football. Do we see it coming back in the spring? Do we see it being a possibility to play in 2021, or will it have to wait until 2022? And it has to do a lot with, even Canadian government and what the government rules are for the process right now. And will there be stimulus packages to help the teams out? The BC Lions longtime owner just passed away. I mean, this is a man who ran 2 teams at one time, up there in Canada. So we talked a lot about him. And then we went into some NFL fun categories. Again, like you said, it was our Halloween edition. So we took a spin on a lot of questions with spooky stuff and invisible defenses and stuff like that to just have some fun with this one. I mean, Mav Sports Take is only like 12 episodes. We're still young, but we want to have some fun with Halloween. It's one of my favorite personal holidays. If you come to my house, you know which one it is because outside is actually all decorated up and stuff. So, we want to have that fun. Ryan jumped in on it and had some fun with me, and it was a great episode. Past episodes, though, that we did where, we had recruiters on from Weber State, from Illinois. We've had, Tom Pelissero from NFL Network on. We try to dive into the football business and the sports business, and we talk a lot more about the business. We do throw some pick'ems and have some fun around, but again, we really try to dive in the business. We had a panel of ladies that came on and talked about their roles in sports. We, from Catherine Reich, who works for the Eagles, to Jill Baxter, who was been an agent since '87. We had Jennifer Chen, who's in the media side of this whole sports thing. So again, we're trying to give you the business of football and the appearance of different ways. So, if you have suggestions, we're always open to it. Coming up, actually, we have a young athlete, a high school athlete, going to come talk about being recruited these days to play college baseball. He's out of the New York area, and he's coming on, I think, this coming week, if his schedule will allow it, where he'll come on talking about being recruited as a baseball player from a high school perspective. And that's what we're trying to do, is give everybody a taste of Mav Sports Take in every different way.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Amazing 12 episodes in the can, along with Ryan Roberts, NFL Draft Bible Director of Scouting, Joe DeLeon behind the scenes, chopping it up. And wow, 3 months worth of episodes. I'm still waiting for my invite over here to come on the show. We'll see.
You have an open invite. I've already told you. You just got to show, like I did on you this morning. You just got to show up. I popped up and I was like, well, I'm up early enough. Rick, I'm coming on. Here we go. What'd you say? All right, I'll send you the link. All you got to do is, David, I'm up. I'm ready to go. Okay, come on over. Yeah. Jesus, you know how Italians do it. There's an open door policy. If you don't open the door, it's on you. It's not on me. It's not on me because you got open door policy here.
Fair enough. I'll bring the cannolis.
Just don't leave. Just don't take the cannolis afterwards.
Well, it's been a great power of hour. We had a surprise here guest with David Turner joining us. He usually hops on at least once a week here on the State of Football. Shout out to all of our guests today. Dane Vandernat at the top of the show to discuss the recent impact of the cancellation of the East-West Shrine Game. Of course, we talked about the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, which he is the director of, and I am happy to work alongside him with what we have planned in store for the upcoming events. And then we had Neil Stratton. Nobody brings you inside the business of football better than InsideTheLeague.com. And so make sure you sign up for all the great seminars tonight, the Maverick Sports Consulting, the Inside the League, Friday Night Scout School tomorrow night. It's a can't stop, won't stop affair. It spills right into Saturday. We let David sleep for about 2 hours, and then we say, hey, wake up. We got the NFL Draft Tailgate Show Saturday morning. I think that'll be our third or fourth rodeo, and that's a lot of fun. We actually won't have Ryan this weekend since he's celebrating the birthday. We're going to pop on Russell Landy instead. And so, hopefully our friend John Murphy will have the lights back on by then. But last time I checked, David, almost 2 million people without power in that New Orleans Gulf Coast region. So again, our hearts go out to all the people, and again, we will rise up. We will get through this. We will stand down and hold our ground and come back bigger, stronger, and better than ever. We'll be back bigger, better, and better than ever tomorrow, Friday, weekdays, here on the State of Football, your new home.